Hi, my name is Patty Baker. Welcome to my page, Live on Purpose. And however you found me, I'm glad you're here. If it's your first time joining me though, please know this. Every question that is asked through my Facebook Messenger is given to you every week in content. So that's what this is tonight, is just my weekly Thursday night Facebook Live, where I take one of the questions from my inbox and build out some content for a topic for the evening. And tonight's topic is the friend zone. So if you're joining me recorded for the first time, I love doing live because I love talking to my friends in the zone. So as I am doing that, and you might not want to just hear all the diatribe that's going on, I will go ahead and put here, however you're looking at this, when the time on the video of when this starts, so that you're not, when the content actually starts, so you're not having to listen through everything if you don't want to. If you do, hang in there and join me, because it does get a little lively as we have conversations. So I'm glad that you're here. Please like and follow this page, and you can see the posts that I have throughout the week. And the whole purpose of this group and community that we have here is that we live on purpose rather than searching our whole lives for our purpose. That if we just walk out living on purpose and being fully present in the moment and what's being presented to us and what we are actually doing in the moment, that life and purpose unfolds before us and we can embrace that for everything that it is. So without further ado, all of you who are joining me live are showing up in the room. So I want to say a quick howdy and hello to all of you. And if you are joining me live for the first time, I see you, but I will not acknowledge you unless you make a post. Because I appreciate your anonymity and wanting just to kind of sit back and see what's going on and listen while you're doing whatever, dishes, laundry, driving, whatever y'all are doing. But it does take me a second to go through each one because I see you, and I just want to acknowledge all of you who are here and kind of sitting in the back of the room. If you think that this is a great topic for tonight and maybe somebody else might enjoy it on your page, go ahead and share it. And you can invite people over too. I'm stuck in the friend zone. Girlfriend, we hopefully we can shed some light into that tonight. Oftentimes we get put in the friend zone, or we put people in the friend zone. So we'll definitely reach out about that. Hi, David. Great to see you tonight. Glad you're in the house. Hello, Ed. Always great to see you, and I always enjoy your posts. So thank you so much for that. Nathan in the house. What is going on? I hope that you are out of your depression from Super Bowl Sunday. Just another little jab for you this week. But anyway, it was great watching Super Bowl. I don't know if any of you did. I watched a little bit of it and enjoyed part of my evening doing that. Yes, when I met you, we did. We had this conversation, Nathan, so I'm glad. Friend zone here. Hey, Dina, you're in the friend zone too. You have a lot in the friend zone. Yeah, well, let's dive in tonight and just get a little perspective on what it looks like. I'm excited to join you guys in this. I call this the hot topic for the month, actually, and Valentine's Day is coming up like next Wednesday. So before we meet again, some people probably celebrating this weekend and throughout next week and next weekend. So that kind of midweek Valentine's Day just kind of splits things up. Hi, Gary. Great to see you, and thank you always for sending me a message and let me know what's going on in your life. And I appreciate communicating with all of you throughout the week. Just hit to send me a message, and I usually respond within an hour or so as my time allows. As most of you know, I work full time, and so this is something that I have a great time doing on Thursdays, and then just keeping up with all of you during the week. So thank you so much for being my friend. And that said, let's dive in because we are about to enter the friend zone. Okay. And for those of you just joining in live, howdy and hello to you. I will not acknowledge you unless you make a public post. So, friend zone. Where the heck did that whole concept come from anyway, like the friend zone? My grandmother never talked to me about the friend zone. My mom never talked to me about the friend zone. And maybe I'm beginning to date myself a little bit here when I say this, but I was like, what the heck is a friend zone? Like, what is that? And am I doing that? Or am I in that? Or what does that look like? And as I began to do some research on this, and most of you know, I gather the content for all of the questions that come in through 67 books. 66 of them are bound in what's called the Bible, and the 67th one is Wikipedia. But I found that in an episode of Friends back in the mid-90s, I guess Ross had a thing for his friend Rachel, and so he became like mayor of the friend zone. And so that whole concept kind of got platformed there, and all of a sudden, what people had been experiencing actually now has a title. And so this whole cultural approach to it has happened. So I come to you from a biblical perspective first to say, if you want to go out on BibleGateway.com and type in friend zone in the search and see what comes up biblically, you're going to come up empty. As a matter of fact, dating isn't even really talked about in the Bible because culturally it wasn't something that they did. You see very, very close like BFFs going on. Jesus had 3 very close friends who were part of the 12 disciples, and so we have those, Peter, James, and John. And we see Ruth and Naomi have a very intimate and close relationship as friends, and yet they were daughter-in-law and mother-in-law. We see Jonathan and David in the Old Testament, and they were considered to be close, like closer than brothers close. And so, there are many examples of friendships in the Bible, and I also believe that there are healthy instances where we see cross-gender relationships or what we may call friends of the opposite sex or male-female relationships, which is how I'm going to refer to them tonight. And so we have these male-female relationships. However, they take a very, Jesus was a great model of this. Jesus had, female friends too. But they weren't part of his core 3, right? But yet they were in the context of the group. And so as we begin to look at what our culture has cultivated, as we've evolved in our culture, if you want to call it that we have this like friends with benefits, completely different than the friend zone, right? And then we have this whole, hey, you want to Netflix and chill. Whole different dynamic. But do you see how our culture in our relationships builds out the dynamics of our social interaction? And so now we have the friend zone. And so nothing biblically that I can say, and Jesus said about the friend zone, right? But let's take a look at some of those relationships with that perspective as we come through. So what was going on in the 80s and 90s to kind of create this whole friend zone phenomenon? And what was happening is women were becoming more independent. Not that that was, bad in any way, but what it did to the context of our culture is it began to shift. It began to shift relationships. It began to shift how the home the dynamics of the home was being played out because both men and women were working. We saw divorce rates on the rise. We saw, and I don't want to get into this whole feminism movement because that's not where I'm going. Because then we have a tendency to get too far to the left or too far to the right. But I just want to give you a context that there was a change in what was happening in our culture that created the friend zone. The friend zone doesn't exist in all cultures around the world, okay? So when I say that there was a cultural shift, if you lived during that time when you saw that and you understood that, I remember, I was in my, I'm pushing up against 50, but I remember when my dad was encouraging me, and he said, you can be whatever you want to be. And this was in the 80s. He said, you can be whatever you want to be. Just go be it and do it. There is nothing holding you back. And yet my mom wanted a part-time job, and he fought her on it. And really, my mom had lost her job. She was a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids who were extremely independent and doing their own thing, and she was at home and bored and wanted to do something. And so getting out of the home and getting a job was like awesome for her. And it's not like she had never worked before. She worked before she was married. But yet my dad, out of one side of his mouth, was pressing me to do and be, and the time is now. And for my mom, like, no. So I could feel that whole cultural dynamic kind of kicking in my own home, if you will. And I don't know if any of you have experienced that in the 80s and 90s, or maybe you're beyond that. And so maybe you saw your parents begin to experience that, or maybe you were in a home where both parents worked. But relationally, what that has done, and we are seeing this played out in the social media and also in our news today. We have this whole hashtag Me Too movement that's going on, where you're talking about women who have now, they wanted to platform and willing to do everything that they could to be in industry, whatever that looked like. And now they're like, maybe I didn't go about that the right way, and maybe that was unhealthy for what I had to go through to do it. And so now you see this whole dynamic that's kicking in, right? And so now we're beginning to see just another shift in our culture, and it makes male-female relationships messy and difficult. And so we have this friend zone, which is where I want to land now. But I just want to give you a bird's eye view of some context of why other cultures don't see this, and why sometimes I believe we struggle with it. And I know that on the other end of this spectrum is a narrow Christian view that says that men and women shouldn't be friends, because then that kind of neutralizes that male-female dynamic that happens in pursuing relationships. And so it's just not good to be friends with the opposite sex. And I don't agree with that. I think that biblically there's enough there that says it's okay to have male-female relationships that are friendships. But I think that they can have a tendency to get messy and awkward if we're not upfront and open about our relationships. So what I want to do for you tonight is just outline some context, and I want to give you 4 areas where you can begin to look at the friendships that you're in, or the friend zone that you're in, and then see what's healthy and what's not healthy about that, and how you can work toward making those relationships healthy. So before I dive into those 4 points, let me just give a little virtual hug to all of you before we try and get unstuck from out of the friend zone. Thank you so much for liking my green sweater tonight. I got it from my friend's closet. She was done with it, so there you go. That's how I get that. Hi, Tracy. Great to see you tonight, beautiful. I'm glad you're in the house. Thank you so much for that. You had a study at CVC. If you use the called relationships are messy. Ooh, aren't they though? Ooh, they're messy. They can get messy. So, as if you follow me for any more than 2 videos, you know I take notes, because I build out this content and I'm working probably about 3 or 4 weeks ahead right now. And so I usually take, a day or so before Thursday, like Tuesday, Wednesday, just kind of finish wrapping up. So one of the things that I found just this week that I thought was interesting is that we talk about male-female relationships in general, but really, in the context of male-female relationships, are sub-relationships based upon if we're married. So you may have an unmarried woman and a married man, an unmarried man and a married woman, right? 2 married people married man, married woman, or two singles, single man, single woman. So you've got 4 different dynamics kicking. I could go into each one of these and have a 4-week series on it. But suffice it to say this. You have a female runner who has a male running partner, and the male running partner's married, she's single, and they run 3 times a week. She's married, he's single, they're co-workers, and they carpool together. She is the den mom, and he is the den father for Cub Scouts, and they hang out. They're co-leading a singles Bible study, and it's a single man and a single woman. So there's a lot of different dynamics. I know for me, I'm a business owner and I help injured workers get back to work. I meet with employers. I meet with physicians. I meet with clients, patients. I speak at trade shows and conventions and safety symposiums and things like that. And it's predominantly, when you become, even in this kind of workers' comp industry, it's still very male-dominated once you hit a business owner level. And so many of my interactions is with men of the opposite sex, right? Of course they are. They're men. But I'm having business relationships with the opposite sex, whether they're married or not. And so always using discretion so that I never meet any of those men outside of a public space. So there's no private meeting, there's nothing like that. If there's a meeting that I'm needing to have, I'll make sure that the door's open. I'll just say, hey, if you don't mind, I'd just prefer to keep the door open. Even at church, I have led Bible studies over the years. I have done leadership development and team building and all of those things. And it has put me in positions where I have worked directly with men who are married and not married. But I will tell you at the end of the day that always having someone else with me and not that I'm afraid that somebody's going to do something to me or that, nothing like that. There's no sexual harassment is going to happen. It's nothing like that. It's the perception of our interaction. So this just happened last night, okay? Use discretion. This just happened to me last night. I lead a Bible study. And it's a mixed group, men and women, married and single. And this one man stayed after to help put up the table and the chairs that we were using in the room we were in. And I said, hey, can I help you with the table? Because one of the legs was just kept, I don't know what it was, but as he was rolling the table, just kept flipping out. I don't know. The table was flipping out. So, and he said, no, I got it. But at some point, I thought, because he's struggling with that, because the leg catch thing was broke, I'll go open up the container area, or the door, where these are kept. And as I walked out to that area, I'm like, you know what? Then that would make just he and I, and we're not an eye shot for anybody that's back here, and I just don't feel comfortable doing that, so I'm just not going to do it. And I didn't. And then he came back in, and there was another lady there. She kind of coordinates all the Bible studies. And so I'm checking in with her and letting her know that everything was cleaned up and details for next week. And this man came up, and he started talking to me about a personal situation that he had going on with another man. And he wanted to talk to me about it. And I did not feel the need to get into that with him. And so I thought it was uncomfortable. So what I did was I just said, did you talk to another man about this? And he said, yes, I talked to Jack. And I said, great, I'm glad. And please continue to talk to other, godly men who can assist you in this issue that you're having with this one gentleman. I didn't feel the need to step into that situation just because of the gender relationship. And I don't want there to be any misconstrued anything about my intentions, about anything. So I keep wisdom and discernment and discretion in every relationship that I'm in, friendship that I'm in, with anyone of the opposite sex. I don't know where you guys are at with that, or how you handle it, but I am almost hypersensitive to it. I believe that I'm a leader and in a position of influence, and I don't want there to be any doubt in any action or anything that I do that may cause a string of thought or a line of thought that would be inappropriate. And that goes to always walking out my faith in Christ-like character and with godly integrity. Let me hear what you have to say. Boundaries need to be established up front. Great Christian author, book called Boundaries. Great read and a study. I have that book, David, and you know what I'll do is I'll put a link on here. It's called Boundaries. And I think he did one, Boundaries in Dating, as well. So yes, good. Hi, Richard Gettings in the house. Great to see you, sir. So there are times when we are, and I'm speaking to single men and single women now, because I want to get back down and dial into the friend zone. But again, subcategories of male-female relationships, married, not married, and all this other stuff, I just don't go there. And I keep above board on it. But let's dive in now to the friend zone with single male, single female. This doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. And you fall into this abyss called the friend zone. And it's, who knows? It could be any number of reasons why you guys have become friends. The guy or girl next door, the high school friend, the coworker, the carpool buddy, the running buddy, PTA meeting. I don't know where you're meeting, at the bus stop. It could be any number of places. But at some point, something happens. It could be a look. It could be the way they were dressed. It could be an experience that you shared together. It could be an adversity that you helped the other through. It could be just increased time that you've spent together. It could be that you got into the relationship going, she's not ready to date right now, but I want to become her friend just to stay close, because once she's healed from this relationship and ready to date, I want to be there. So I'm going to enter into the friend zone with her and be there for her. Or you're hurt, you're a female, you just got out of a relationship with this guy and you don't want to date anybody, but just being around men feels good. Because you know that not every guy is a jerk, and it's nice that you can just be in the safety of that because you've had this wrecked relationship. The men in your life in the past have not been good examples. You're still hurt by it, but you just like being around the guys. And by the way, it helps, especially when you got something wrong with your car or something that needs done, and you can dive in and have that person there for you. That it works. It works. Poor Jamie got friend zoned by me at first, and now look where we are. Yes, happily married. Isn't that interesting? I find that interesting. Wisdom, discernment, and discretion. Absolutely. You read the Boundaries book. Yeah. Good. I'm glad. I will post that as a link on here. I friend zoned him out of fear, and I wasn't ready for it. Any number of reasons why we friend zone, right? And I think this happens a lot of times. And again, this is a cultural thing because of our technology-driven society. We get into these online dating sites. And so now we're on Date, Hookup, and any number, Match, Christian Mingle, Plenty of Fish, you name them, they're out there. And maybe you're not ready, but you're just kind of testing the waters to see what this is going to look like. And now all of a sudden you realize, I'm not ready for a relationship, but I just want to go out and see what it's like. Like, do I still have it? Can I still be available? Is it over in my life? Am I all washed up, or am I just getting started? And for some women, emotionally, it makes them feel better and it helps their self-esteem because they're out and dating again, but yet they're not ready to commit. And for men, sometimes they've just already, hey, I'm separated, the divorce is coming up, and I just want to get out there and see what's going on. And then they realize, ooh, women don't want to commit to me because I'm kind of still married, right? And so you enter into that kind of zone too. And so friend zone kind of happens there as well. So when you begin to have those feelings, the first thing to do is assess the situation and assess the friendship. This is number 1 of 4 points for tonight. This has to do with your level of maturity and your social skills. That's really what it comes down to, being able to step back for a moment and assess the situation. That's not talk to everybody else about it. That's not talking to your friend about it of the opposite sex, your male or female friend. That's assessing, doing an assessment. It happens up here, it happens in here, right? There was a vibe that created something that stirred up. Assess it. Weigh out what it was. The risks that might be associated with jumping too fast with that. And the risk of not doing anything. When you begin to evaluate whether the relationship will be detrimental for either you or him by bringing this, him or her, right? By bringing this up, and I'm speaking from the female perspective, but if you're evaluating that relationship, is it going to be detrimental at this point to bring it up? Have they just gone through a bad breakup and you're like, wow, great for me. I'm excited and I can't wait for him to get ready to move on already. Gosh, that was such a horrible girlfriend he had and I could be so much better. And so I'm going to be there for him, right? And so you're just waiting, and you really have to ask yourself, why are you in this relationship? And are these feelings that you're having a rebound? Are you just testing the waters for yourself? Is it you're wanting this person to like you, but you don't know if they do? What happens if you step outside of that zone of we're friends, but I'm sensing something a little bit more cooking? So evaluate that. There's always the possibility of awkwardness that's going to happen, or conflict, or heartache, right? All of these things come into play when you're thinking about this. Someone might be thinking, hey, I'm so glad to be in this relationship with this friend because he's there for me when I need him, and I can text him when I got a problem with my car and he's there to fix it for me, and I take him a meal every once in a while, and I help him clean his house because he's horrible at it. And so it works, right? And we're great. And I watch his kids sometimes and he watches my kids sometimes, and it works. It's great. And there's no strings attached, and I don't have any emotional component to it, and I'm done. And yet he's on the other side going, this woman is amazing. And I am just waiting for her to get to know me better so that I can see that she has those feelings for me too. And I don't think that's going to happen until her kids are a couple years older and she feels like she doesn't have to be with him so much. But me hanging around her will allow her just to continue to see me and warm up to me and be good. And I'm going to be there and available for her. And you're like, what? These are two people and they're in the same friendship, but they both have very different understanding of what the relationship's all about. So assess the relationship, assess the situation, and think about, it's funny. God created us in his image, male and female, he created us. And after that, I think the only thing sometimes we have in common, men are from Mars, right? Women are from Mars, Venus, that whole thing, whatever that was, that book that came out. The only thing that we have in common is that we were created in the image of God, right? Because we both are, we have different thought processes and different ways we interpret things, and our emotions are different, and we're wired different, and God's called us to be equal, and yet we complement each other in our capacities, that how God has created us. But sometimes that's kind of our likeness in Christ, and our likeness in how God created us in his image is kind of where it stops, right? And then beyond that, we think differently and we respond differently, and all of those things. So that needs to be taken into consideration as well. You know, we can't think for someone else, but we can assess what we know and what we're feeling. And sometimes I think we ignore that and just continue to move on by it. What are your motives, right? I've kind of addressed that in some of these scenarios, but you really got to look at what your motive is for even being in this friendship anyway. And at this point, you're not in the friend zone, although you both are friends. Nobody's really placed the other one there, but somebody's got this spark that's kind of kicking. When you have friends who are asking, hey, is there something more going on between you and Ben? Or, you know, I noticed that you blew us off for the game to go hang out with Jill last night. Like, is there something more going on between the two of you than just friends? So when you're getting that, you kind of have to ask yourself, are we throwing off vibes, or am I throwing off a vibe? Or is there something else that's going on there that's making me, it's got to get assessed. And talking about it with everybody else doesn't really help you understand what you're thinking and what you're feeling. Sometimes we talk in order to think. Sometimes we think in order to talk. But in this situation, go to someone trusted, pray, seek God, and wise counsel. But don't go to the whole committee. Okay? Just don't go to the whole committee. Let me see what you have to say. What do you say to someone who friend zoned you, say they don't want a relationship right now, but get in one the next week? Well, they're just letting you down easy, Nathan. That's it. They don't want to be in a relationship with you, and so that's their way of doing it. Because they're awkward, and their maturity and social skills isn't there. So they friend zoned you, and then when you go to the next step, they're like, oh, I'll let him down easy and just tell him that I don't want to date right now. Ooh, look at that guy. Right? What's the phrase? She wasn't that into you anyway. But she wanted to be your friend. You're the safe guy, right? Both people have to make an effort to get to know the other person. Absolutely. And if one does not make the effort, that's a good sign to me to move on. You can say we can be friends, but, you know, it's going to happen. Right. Absolutely. I want to give you Luke 14:28. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Is there enough there to delve into that and talk about openly with the other person about a relationship beyond friendship? If there is, you got to consider the cost, and you got to consider how much is there that's already invested. So assess the situation. That's number 1 of 4. Number 2, be honest. Nathan, she was not being honest. She wasn't. That's the hard truth. She wasn't being honest with you. Good. At least you're not with a dishonest person that can't tell you their true feelings. Good for you. Good for you that she moved on the next week. Bye-bye. You got to be first honest with yourself. Okay? What are your motives for being in the relationship? Or is this something that's just sprouted out of the friendship that you've had? And do we really want the same thing out of this relationship? Be honest. Be honest with yourself about it. You can deny it to everybody else that says, oh, no, we're just friends. But maybe deep down inside, you're like, man, I can't wait till he's over that other girl so that we can, start dating. But you deny it to everybody else, but your actions and everything about you, whether you believe it or not, is saying something different. Do you find yourself thinking about them and fantasizing about having a life with them? Be honest with yourself. That's the second thing. Once you assess the situation, be honest with yourself. I think sometimes we deny, and when really there is something there. And then we never say anything, which just keeps us trapped in that friend zone. So sometimes you may think that you're being friend zoned when actually you're friend zoning yourself. So be honest with yourself. And then you're going to need to be honest with the other person. That leads us into number 3. But Proverbs 12:17 says this: whoever speaks the truth gives honest evidence, but a false witness utters deceit. Don't deceive yourself. And don't deceive others. And that's exactly what Nathan was just talking about, right? There's no honesty in that. There's no truth in that. And her actions are saying something completely different. Be direct about your feelings. Once you have assessed the situation, you've taken an honest look at yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, then you need to be honest and be direct with the other person. Now, ladies, sometimes we have a hard time with this because I think oftentimes we create the friend zone because it's easier, it's more organized, we don't have to think about it, we don't have to put any emotional investment in it, and so they're just friend zoned. And for men, friend zone is being exiled and neutered. And I can't talk, I can't speak, I can't move because you've created a safety zone for yourself. And so I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to do and be for you until maybe you come around and warm up to me. And that's where it gets messy. That's where it gets messy. So men, be open, upfront, and direct. That doesn't mean that she will be. Nathan just gave us a prime example of a woman who wasn't. But our hope is that we would be in relationship, in a friendship that has some investment in it where we can be honest with each other. Besides, if you can't be direct and honest in your friendship about your feelings, what is the depth of your friendship anyway? You've got to ask yourself that. If you can't be direct about your feelings with the other person, what are you doing? What are you doing? Number 3, be direct about your feelings and communicate that clearly. How are you able to communicate directly and clearly? You've assessed the situation and you've been honest with yourself. What does direct mean? Google Dictionary is what I used this evening. Extending or moving from one place to another by the shortest way without changing direction. Or stopping without intervening factors or intermediaries, with no one or nothing in between. Direct. Be direct. Can you ask Sally on your lunch break if she likes me? Like more than a friend. Then I'll know if I can dive into that a little bit. And sometimes maybe it takes that if you're not already friends and you don't know him at all. But gosh, if you guys are friends and you have a relationship, be open, honest, and direct. Hello. I think you're a hottie. Oh, you're like a brother to me, and I thank you so much for being in my life. You know what? I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, actually. And I don't like being your brother. As a matter of fact, I want to be your boyfriend. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I want to have an open conversation about it. And if you're not there with it, that's okay. But if you are, then I want to explore the opportunity of it. I think it would be great, right? So let's be open. Can we just talk honestly for a second? Be open, be direct, be honest. I think when we are able to disperse or get rid of our insecurities, we're able to have that conversation. And I go back to our maturity and our social skills. You know, this isn't something that you want to text. You lose all the emotion in it. You lose the face-to-face. You lose seeing the other person and how they're reacting and responding to you. So this is something that you want to do where you can have some FaceTime. This isn't a text deal. We do it direct. Nothing and no one in between. We have insecurities. And out of that comes fear. Fear. Fear, there's a healthy fear. I get that. But the kind of fear here is, I don't want to mess up the relationship. I don't want to lose a friendship for the sake of trying to go for, so I'm going to settle here because I'm afraid. I don't know what he's going to say. I don't know how she's going to react. I don't know how. I don't want to say the wrong thing and wreck this whole relationship for where I want it to go because I'm feeling something and maybe they are and maybe they aren't, but she hasn't given me any signs and I don't know if I should like wait for the signs or if I should just hang out and be neutered until she makes a move. Ooh. The only thing that is going to overcome fear is to take courage. Joshua 1:9 says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Get prayed up and go. Talk to her. Explain to him your feelings. Courage. Do you know what feeds fear? Time. Time feeds fear. That's why, and the vehicle for that is avoidance and procrastination. Those are the two vehicles we use. So we got to make this phone call, but we don't want to. We'll go grab a cup of coffee, go grab a smoke. We'll clean the house. We'll do everything else so that we don't have to do that because of the anxiety and the worry and the lack of control, and we don't know the outcome, and we have fear. And so as we continue to feed time into it, we just don't do anything about it, and it gets messy. Very messy. If you are friends with someone of the opposite sex and that's all you're looking for, you don't have these issues. But obviously, you've been friend zoned and you don't want to be in friend zone, and that's why you're here. So feel the fear. Understand that then that means that you need to take courage. And in taking courage, that means the opposite of procrastination, the opposite of avoidance. That means step in. And when you step in with faith and take courage, it is amazing what kind of breakthroughs you'll have. Oh, he might say no. Yeah, he might. Might say yes too. Might say not now. Might say wait. Might say whatever. But you know what? Wouldn't it be better if you knew? Oh, well, I think he thinks, stop it. Don't go over the reel that's going on in your mind over and over like a rerun. It's a soap opera that goes on for a year and you've only really watched 2 days on TV. Stop it. You're going to have this conversation. You know this person. You're friends. The fourth thing is after this discussion, is to set boundaries. Richard, you had something to say. I am on it. Let me back up just a minute. God is full of surprises. Be solid in your faith. Yes, yes, and yes. We need to be relational risk takers. I love that. That is a great saying. I asked a woman if she read the 5 love languages for singles and ending up blocking me. Good. Glad she did. So That just shut a door for you and left you wide open for any other doors that would be open. Hey, let me tell you, I've read the 5 love languages. That doesn't mean I want to go out with you. It doesn't mean I'm going to block you. But yeah, that gives us a place where we can have a conversation. This scared her, and she said, I was moving way too fast. I just after she read the book. I know, right? But here we are, this whole fear thing. So she's not even ready to be in a relationship. If you can't even talk about a book, and she's like, ugh. She's got relationship issues. Again, it's maturity and social skills. Acknowledge that it's there, love her where she is, and move on. Very simple. Very simple. Simple to say, but when your heart's invested and you've got emotional attachment to it, it gets a little awkward and messy, huh? It's like clamping the umbilical cord. You don't need it anymore. Done. Done. Prayed up, step in. Soap opera. I know, it is. It can be. So, we've assessed the relationship. We've assessed the situation. That's number one. We've been honest with ourselves about our feelings and about where we are and those types of things. We've been direct about how we feel with our friend. And now there's been a discussion. And now there is something that I call beautifully clarity. Because now I know where I stand, and I now know where you stand without me having to put what I think that you're going to say, or I think that you think, or I think that you feel. I don't have to do all of that anymore because I know, because you told me. And I'm not going to say, oh, well, what she really meant was, and what he really meant to say was, and no, it is what it is. We've had this discussion. We're friends. And I understand that you're more into me than I thought you were. And I'm excited about that. Guess what? We need to now set some boundaries. He had the conversation with her, and she said, Fear, you want to talk about love language book? Bye-bye. Yeah. And she shut that door, and there is no friend zone. She set a boundary. Again, what may work for some may not work for others. I have a friend before I married, and we had an amazing, high school friendship, and we dated, and it was wonderful. But we were friends before we dated. And I just remember that time. And again, we're talking the 80s, 90s kind of thing. And I said, I'm really into you. And he goes, yeah, I think I could be into you too, so to speak. And so we had this relationship, and as it evolved, we realized, I can't stand you. And he said, I can't stand you more. And I said, yeah, what are we going to do? Because now we're like, I like you, but I don't love you like this. And he said, I don't love you like this either. And so we agreed to continue as friends. However, there was a new relational dynamic, because now we're both dating other people, and now that friendship that we had before our dating relationship was never the same, but it was different, and it was good. And I ended up marrying, and he moved on with his life, and we still connect from time to time, but there's boundaries there. Firm boundaries there. So when the friend zone goes from being friends, no other intimacy involved in that relationship, it's platonic, for lack of a better word, right? And it evolves into something more than that, and you both mutually agree to it, then set some boundaries in it. And if it falls apart, no matter how quickly or not, then you're going to have to reestablish what that looks like. And for some, they might not be able to continue to stay as friends because of the dynamic of the relationship. And for others, that relationship is strong enough and its friendship level to hold. Don't look at other people's dynamics in their relationship and play that over onto yours. Every one of them's different because everybody's different. But you're going to have to figure out what works. I may not block you over talking about a book, but some other person may, right? Nathan says, I had a couple cases when I was younger, after I poured my heart out to someone who were good friends, but they actually got real mad after I poured out my heart, and they started to treat me badly. And you know what? That's the other thing too. You know, you just don't know how people are going to respond. But at the same time, you want to be honest with yourself about your feelings, but you're assessing that relationship first to see what's there, and then explaining your current feelings to them in a way you know them, they're your friends, and how they receive that is how they receive that. You want to be cautious and use discretion and discernment and wisdom. Seek wise counsel. Don't go tell the committee, Nathan, but go to one person. Go to another man and say, hey, listen, this is what I have going on. Or go to a mature male Christian, mature female Christian, and say, hey, I'm going to go to this Christian woman, and we're friends, but... And then when you're assessing that, you have to ask, how did you all get in the friendship anyway? Was it because she was on the rebound and needed a safe place to hug a guy and not have anybody else coming around her? Or were you already thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead in that friendship? Or did it just evolve? I mean, there are a lot of dynamics into it, which is why you've got to assess it first and be honest with yourself and your motives why you're in the friendship in the beginning. Otherwise, there's no need, if you already have feelings for that person, to get in the friend zone in the first place. Tell them how you feel up front. If it's not there, it's not there. Acknowledge and move on. If they can't handle the dynamic of the conversation, the healthy, discerning, prayed up, spirit-led conversation that you're having, and they melt all over the place on it, get mad, treat you badly, block you, whatever, thank God for the closed door, wish them well, love them from a distance, and move on. It's it. It's it. Stacy. Hi, Miss Stacy. Great to see you in the house. I love you. I think if we all moved slower, we could get to know each other better and have more time to decide what exactly we want from each other. Friends or lovers, we all need to be understanding with what each other wants. That's what causes the fear of rejection, especially when one likes the other more than the other likes them. We are adults and we should be mature enough to accept the outcome. It just isn't always the case. Absolutely. I agree with you. Did I miss you, Richard? Oh, no, you said about fear. I got it. I just want to make sure when one door closes, another opens up. God always wants his best for all of us. I agree with that. I also know how painful it is when we are emotionally opening ourselves up to express our feelings and we get the door slammed in our face by someone that we love, who we love, right? But I'm back to, you've taken the courage to have this discussion because you have feelings for the other person, and now there is clarity on both sides. It is interesting that I find that once, and you guys are saying it here, and I'm hearing it in my inbox as well. Message me any topic you want, no questions out of the question, and I put them out usually in the order in which I receive them. But let me tell you, when I hear friend zone in my message box, it's normally from men who are getting stuck in friend zones. And then when they do talk about how they feel, the women cut them off. Now, I have also found the flip side of that. Women who have very outgoing personalities, who are driven, who are extroverts, who have men in friend zones, and take a step forward to say, hey, I'm ready for this, and I want to develop this relationship, and then they find out that they just can't make it happen. And I don't know how much of that is culturally driven because of who we are. You know, and I'm a very extroverted female. I'm here in front of a camera talking to people that most of you I've not met. So I get it. This is comfortable for me, but it's not for everybody. And like I said, I own a business and I'm out meeting people all day long, and so it's comfortable for me. So if I want to say how I feel about something, I do. But unless I really like the person, and then I hope that the man would be the pursuer, which really puts up a conflict for him because he sees me in all of these independent, I'm go getting it all day long, but I'm not going to go get it for him. Why? Because there's something in my psyche that says I want to be pursued. Because as a female, I'm the crown of creation, and so God has designed him to pursue me, and so that's what I'm looking for, and so I'm throwing him all the wrong signals by being so extroverted and out here and doing this and that, when really I want to come into alignment and come alongside of him and see his vision and goal for his life and support him and love him where he is. Because at the end of the day, I want to take off my cape and I want to take off my belt and come alongside. It's beautiful. I had 15 years of a wonderful marriage that unfolded in that way. And it was amazing. And our dating relationship was the same way. And he very much took the lead and was a spiritual covering for me. And we read the Bible in the morning, had coffee and tea, and talked about the day. And it's great when it's happening and you feel it and it feels right. But when you're in the middle of the friend zone and you're doing friend things, but then all of a sudden that relationship dynamic changes, and for some women, it's an odd place to be. And so if you're not explaining that out in who you are, that can get confusing for men. Be mindful of it as it's happening. Be mindful of it as it's happening. About something wrong with your body. I'm not understanding what you're saying about something wrong with your body. But if it comes that surface that they're not liking you because of something physical, well then good. Now you've determined that, move on. If you're insecure about something with your body, then you need to stand in front of God and don't blaspheme him by saying that about yourself, because you are uniquely and wonderfully made. Own it, claim it, and be all that you can be in what God has given to you. So I don't know which side that you're coming from, Robbie, but if they're coming at it from that perspective that there's something wrong with your body, then acknowledge that there's something wrong in them that's not able to see that in you. Not that it's wrong, but if they're not having that emotional or spiritual or physical connection with you, then it is what it is. We can't force people to love us. Happened with my last ex, what I perceived to be the love of my life. She was so broken from her past, and I did not, at her back, past relationships, and she left. Not sure why, but the Holy Spirit told me she was very toxic and told me to continue to pray for her from a distance. But ultimately, let her go and wish her well. You know, some people are in divorces where they're waiting, and they have friend zoned themselves because they're waiting for something to happen, or they are loving from a distance. And you can kind of get in that little bit of a mess too. But again, I really want to focus tonight on single men and single women. And when you talk about exes, that's where you are, single men and single women. And the relationship dynamic has changed. And so there needs to be a healthy, mature, depends on your social skills, conversation about what this relationship looks like now. It's best when we, the women, are pursued. Yes, it's in God's word that we are to be pursued. Amen, sister, to the outgoing ladies. You know what? Outgoing ladies get stuck in the friend zone a lot of times because of our personality and how the culture has created us to be, that it's okay to be this way. My grandmother, wonderful, wonderful woman. However, she had a very extroverted personality, but she lived in a time and a place where that was allowed to be in some areas and not in others. But when men are seeing you working and moving and breathing in that extroverted personality, that's a little bit more difficult when you're working in this friend zone culture, right? Yes, and to be equally yoked, absolutely. So if you are in the friend zone, if you are friends in a male-female relationship and you are both single and you are determining, as I wrap up, that there is something there and you are feeling it, and maybe some people around you are kind of asking about it, which is allowing you to think about it, assess the situation, be honest with yourself, be direct with the other person, take courage in that, seek wise counsel if you need to with a mature man or woman, godly, who can help you kind of sift through that if you need to talk in order to think. But journal it, pray it out, do whatever you need to do in order to prepare yourself, and pray for them and what you're saying that they can receive. And then, again, the longer you wait, then the more you're gushing, and then that's a lot for somebody to take on. So use discernment in what you're speaking. Use discretion. Guard yourself, if you will. Because just because the relationship is two single people, once that step of being able to speak it with some clarity comes from the discussion of how both of you feel, then boundaries are going to have to be set. They do, every time. Because the dynamic of the relationship has changed a little bit, because now you both know your feelings. And so now there needs to be another set of boundaries. And in the midst of that, it could be good because you both are going to start dating. And so now you're setting boundaries with that. Or you both have decided after that discussion you guys aren't going to date, and that's okay with that. And then there's everything else in the middle. Like one can't stand it, the other one now has his heart broke, and he can't be in the friendship anymore because it's too painful for him. Whatever that looks like, but boundaries are going to have to be set, and a friendship relationship needs to be reestablished at that point. All things are lawful, says 1 Corinthians 10:23, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful, but not all things build up. So even though you're both single and you're both friends, it may not be healthy for you to stay into it. Although it's okay, it may not be the best for both of you. Guard your heart. Take every thought captive. And I'll give you the scriptures for these. You want to be in God-honoring relationships, whether they're cross-gender relationships like we're talking about now, male-female, or same-sex relationships, male friends, female friends. You want to be in a place where you are always protecting the relationship and protecting one another, and honoring God in those relationships as you're honoring each other. We're called to love one another. And just as we love ourselves. And part of that is talking about, in a very open way, some of the things that we don't want to talk about, and that's relationships and feelings. And sometimes it's just hard to be a friend when you've been so invested with other motives that have been attached, or you've been feeling this way for so long that you finally just gush everything out, and it's so much for the other person to take in, and they're drowning in all of the emotion that you're giving them that they just have to go because they don't know how you're going to handle it otherwise, and they don't know that they can either. But rest in knowing that if the door closes for you, then get mindful. Okay, was there anything that I could have done differently? Or maybe I didn't assess the situation fully. Did I speak off base? Did I put too much energy in everything that I had? I didn't seek wise counsel on this first. I should have recognized she was already still hurt. Or there was nothing you could have done to have made that any easier or any worse for them, because you were honest, you were open, you were direct, and you guarded your heart, you took every thought captive, you assessed your relationship, and you sought wise counsel about it. Stop trying to impress them. Stop trying to help them. Just be their friend in whatever capacity the new boundary is created, even if that's loving them from a distance, as David had said. Stop being for them all the time. Stop treating her like the queen and treating him like the king that you have been, because you've been earning in a relationship because your motive has always been there, but you've denied it for so long. Be direct, be honest, be open. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you get into with regards to your relationships, that this has shed some light on the friend zone. Love God, love others, and love yourself. Good night.